man. I mean, I remember that the play where your safety actually got hurt, and it was like I said, Earl Thomas, and I mean, I didn't realize that it was so bad. I mean, I don't think I realized how bad it was until maybe just a few weeks ago. As we were approaching training camp, and that's what they were saying, that they didn't know if he was going to be ready for training camp or if he would even be ready for the first quarter of the season. And I would have to think. From a defensive standpoint, that has to be scary, for your coaching staff. That just in the blink of an eye, like that secondary unit has basically just become Richard Sherman.
Right now, it is. You're right. I'd be shocked, Rob, if Earl Thomas doesn't play. He's played 80 consecutive regular season games, 10 consecutive postseason games over his 5 NFL seasons. Never missed a game. He rarely misses a practice. He did have the surgery February 24th. The estimated recovery time was 6 to 8 months then, and that's August 24th to October 24th would be the 6 to 8 month window. So that's as early as before the 4th exhibition game or as late as the 5th regular season game. Knowing Thomas, the competitor he is, the fact that he won't need any exhibition games to get ready, he knows the defense, I'd be really, really surprised. So would Richard Sherman when I asked him yesterday. Be really surprised if Thomas isn't there September 13th against the Rams. But they got to get Chancellor back into camp. They'll do that eventually. They would probably guarantee him more money like they did Marshawn Lynch, just moving money from future years up and the upfront guarantee. That's probably what Chance was looking for. But it's going to take a little bit of time to get them run back into shape and playing. And one hidden thing, Rob, about the Legion of Boom secondary, they're most effective, and they've been most effective the last couple of years when the defensive front gets pressure on quarterbacks and forces quarterbacks to throw the ball quicker than they want to. That's an unseen, overlooked aspect of how good the secondary's been. Is that they've got Seattle's pass rush sack numbers aren't high, and so people look and say, well, they don't get a whole lot of sacks. Well, they get enough pressures or urgencies from quarterbacks that throw into that coverage and play into their hands. So. Again, this year it'll be important for guys like Bruce Irvin, the Atlanta guy, to get pressure on the quarterback. Mike Bennett up front, Cliff Averill. Those guys have to have another big year. And Seahawks have they've motivated Bruce Irvin, but not picking up a $7.8 million option to have a big year because he's in a free agency year. But the pass rush is as key as anything to that secondary.
Yeah, absolutely. This is Sports Kings Live. Rob Calloway on the line right now with Gregg Bell, Seattle Seahawks beat writer with the News Tribune. Now, of course, Cam Chancellor holding out, it's about money. All right, we know this, and there are a couple other players that have said to be, kind of not so happy right now about their money situations. But then you have Bobby Wagner, who signed a $43 million 4-year contract extension. Now, for him, that was huge for him. And makes him the highest paid middle linebacker ever.
Yep, right now, that's true.
Yeah, so, I mean, a good move or bad move for the Seahawks?
Well, a great move in that he was priority 1A this offseason. Get Russell Wilson done, which they did on Friday, $87.6 million, $21.9 million per year, second most in the league behind Aaron Rodgers at $22 million. Then 39 hours later, they find $43 million. $22 million guaranteed for Bobby Wagner, former second-round pick in 2012, who's now emerged with Luke Kuechly of Carolina, probably the two best middle linebackers in the league. Kuechly's right behind Wagner in total money. He's got an option year coming up. I think when the Panthers renegotiate or give him a new extension, it'll probably end up being higher than Wagner's. That's the way this goes in the league. But that's a big deal to get those two guys done under the cap. People said that they couldn't do it all. If you sign Wilson, you're going to have to franchise Wagner next year, or vice versa. If you sign Wagner, you have to franchise Wilson. They found the money to do both. They cut a starting defensive tackle, Tony McDaniel, yesterday to clear some money to get those guys signed, Wilson and Wagner. But, yeah, they keep doing it. And the Seahawks, they keep re-signing their core. I added up the numbers. $367.9 million the last 3 years to their core. And they keep getting them under the cap because the other guys on the team, like Ricardo Lockett, like Jermaine Kearse, like Doug Baldwin, Rob, those are undrafted free agents who came into the league cheap. And they've started guys cheap. And they've been able to have cheap starting player. Russell Wilson's the biggest bargain at a quarterback in decades, maybe ever in the NFL. Exactly. Making $600,000, taking you to 2 Super Bowls. that's how the Seahawks have gotten to lock up their core, because they've had cheap, undervalued, undrafted, and late-round guys emerge and keep their payrolls low. Now it's all starting to come up. They got to pay those formerly cheap guys, so that's why the Seahawks are doing what they're doing.
Yeah, now, you talk about Russell Wilson and them getting this deal locked up, and I had talked about on the show previously, I went to Alabama State, and, of course, that's where Tavares Jackson went to school as well.
Right.
I'm a little bit older than Tavares, but, I kept laughing because I'm like, oh, my God, like, Russell keeps saying, oh, if the deal's not right, I'm not going to take it, all the way up until last week where he set the deadline for Friday. And I kept saying, dude, like don't do this, like, because basically I know that this year – his salary would have doubled from that $750,000. It would have actually been like $1.5 million that he would have gone into the season making. But that was the exact same amount that they re-signed Tavares Jackson for. So I was like, come on, man, like, you got to be better than this. Like, there's no way that you can that you can turn down, because it was the original deal that he kind of had turned his nose up to. And I was like, there's no way that you could turn your nose up to a deal that is, that is much larger than what you're going to make in the foreseeable future. Not to mention that you had this beautiful young lady that you're now courting. Like, you're going to need your money, brother. You're going to need your money. And but I'm glad to see that they finally came to some a meeting of the minds on the contract, which he did agree to on Friday. But then when I looked at the numbers today, and I'm not sure if you've really looked at them, but in my opinion, it's a 1-year deal with $31 million guaranteed, and then it's like 4 team options after that. So technically, it's not one of those game breaking or landscape changing quarterback deals. And I honestly thought that it's that the Seahawks could quite possibly jump him over Aaron Rodgers, which didn't happen. But, what are your thoughts on the deal? Have you seen those numbers?
I have, and you're right, $31 million upfront guaranteed, $51.5 million total guaranteed, spread and counts fees as guaranteed. So the way it's structured now is he's on the roster these next 2 years. He's going to end up getting that extra $29, $30 million in guarantees. The thing is, though, Rob, there is no plan B. Even Tavares Jackson, as much as they love him and what he did for that team in 2011, playing hurt, and how revered he is in the locker room, there is no plan B behind Russell Wilson. They don't have, it's Wilson or bust for the next 4 years, which is why they gave him the deal they did. And of course, every NFL contract not guaranteed beyond the year you're playing in. So, sure, they could cut him conceivably next year, but it would be at such an astronomical cap acceleration, signing bonus, and everything else that it would not make financial sense to do that. Wilson got what he wanted. Number one, he got 4 years, and that makes him a free agent at age 30. If the Seahawks keep him in this deal till it expires, he'll only be 30 years old, and he can be a free agent and get even more money then. And 2, he got more guarantees than I think he thought the Seahawks could afford. Once it got to be $31 million at signing, that's a pretty good chunk.
Yeah.
That's the previous highest guarantee they ever gave anyone. The Seahawks was Percy Harvin, $12 million. So they went $19 million above what they ever have gotten signing bonus to anyone before. So it's more money than the Seahawks have ever given anyone by far. I think it's more money than Wilson thought he'd even get when the negotiations started. The Seahawks got away with a deal that, it's 4 years, not as cap friendly, but it's not as high as it could have been.
Yeah.
They don't have a franchise tag to go through that. With the franchise tag would have been $25 million on the cap, instead of prorated next year, like a base salary and bonuses can be. So they were staring at a not-so-great situation had they not gotten this done. So it did work out. There was a lot of compromise on both sides. I know Wilson would have rather had even more money than he got so that it can stay above and relevant. Thing is about these contracts, Rob, next year Andrew Luck's going to sign one, Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers will sign theirs, and then Wilson will suddenly be the 5th highest paid quarterback.
Right, because that's how it goes. Absolutely.
That's how it goes.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Now, my final question for you. This is Sports Kings Live, being heard via Spreaker.com and now iHeartRadio.com. Gregg Bell of the News Tribune, he is the Seattle Seahawks beat writer, joins us. You can follow him on Twitter at GBellSeattle. My final question. All right here in Atlanta, Georgia, we have a brand new head coach, Dan Quinn, the former defensive coordinator.
Like him.
See, that's what I was about to say. See, you already got your pom poms and your popcorn ready. Look, I was about to ask you, what do we get? What do we get with him?
You get a player's guy, a guy who really is in tune with his players. Not so much a buddy, but a guy who really gets into the player's life, his background, where he came from, what motivates him, what makes him tick. And then when they're on the field, he was great in Seattle, just like Gus Bradley before him, who's now the Jacksonville head coach. He was great at keeping things simple during games. The Seattle's defensive playbook is not very complicated. They don't do a whole lot. They don't mix and match and move around before the snap. They don't stunt. They don't change right before the snap. They pretty much stay in their base set. They're a 3-4 team that doesn't move around a lot. They don't even blitz a whole lot by NFL standards today. They just man up and play you, and the players love it because they can play faster. They don't have to think about reads and calls and signals and looking at each other before snaps. Now, they still do some of that. I suspect the Falcons are going to be that way, and I suspect around October, November, you're going to hear Falcons players say, wow, we're playing so much faster because we don't have to think as much. And that's what the Seahawks loved about Quinn and how he just let them play. He prepared them all week, but then on game days, the schemes were very simple, and it was just talent and speed winning out. And I think if he does it like he did in Seattle, I think your Atlanta players are going to talk about how liberating his schemes are on the defensive side of the ball and how it just lets them be players. And he's a good man with the media. He always has time to answer any questions, and he just seemed like a really good front man for an organization. We can't say good enough things about him out here in Seattle, both from the media and inside the team. And I think Arthur Blank got a good one there.
Oh, well, we shall see, because they have already said that with our new head coach, we're going to be quinning. That's the spin on winning. We're going to be quinning. So we shall see. But Gregg Bell of the News Tribune, Seattle Seahawks beat writer, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Very insightful, and I like how you got motivated and got excited about Dan Quinn. So I really hope that I'm able to do it, and I'm also hopeful that the Falcon fans and the Falcons will completely embrace what he's bringing, this winning culture that he's bringing, this championship culture that he's bringing here. So I hope it lives up to the hype, man. But thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to talking to you once the season gets underway.
Okay, Rob, appreciate it. How's the new stadium coming? What's the deal on that?
Oh, hey, man, that stadium is going to be magnificent. Now, I don't know if we're going to be able to do some of the things that you guys do, the 12th man up there in Seattle. I don't know if we'll be breaking like any earthquake records or any sound barriers or anything like that. Because, our crowd, we kind of bougie. So we just kind of sit back and clap, right? So I don't know if the 12th man is going to have that effect, or if the acoustics of the stadium will be like you all stadium up there. But, hey, from where we are right now, and we're still – it's not scheduled to open until 2017. So right now we're at the beginning of August of 2015. It's like they've made such I can't even explain. Like it's there. Like the stadium is actually there, man. Like you can. The only thing that's not on it are the roof and the extremities or whatnot. But you can actually see it and be like, oh, this is going to be magnificent. So. Of course, I'm sure we'll be hosting Seattle one of these days when we open up the stadium. Sure. So, so then you guys will get to see it firsthand. But I think it's going to be magnificent. And then, the other thing about it is, and we had this little running joke around here, and then I'll let you go, is that, longtime Hawk Dominique Wilkins, he recently got a statue constructed and it's erected like right outside of Phillips Arena, which is like cat a corner from the new stadium. So I always tell people so make sure when you go check out the new stadium, as they're building it, you stop by Phillips Arena, because Dominique Wilkins has a statue. That's, I just have to give that plug. That's what we plug around here, because he's the only
highlights film. I grew up with him.
See what I'm saying? Thank you. See, you know what, Greg? You're my man. Greg. You are my man. But hey,
I go Atlanta with you a little bit.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. But look, when the season kicks off, we're definitely gonna link up and do this all over again. Okay.
All right, Rob. Appreciate the time.
All right, thank you, man. All right, great stuff from Gregg right there. Coming up on the other side on this day, where we take a look back at the day in sports history.